Hello again, everyone, and welcome to the Sports Report, the archived editions. I'm Dave Rush in Niagara Falls, along with John Poulter in Toronto. John, welcome to the show today.
Thank you, Dave. Always a pleasure to chat with you on the Sports Archives.
Okay, and today we're going to cover the career of Major League Baseball great catcher Johnny Bench. And John, what was your motivation for selecting him as a topic today?
Well, being in Toronto, of course, I'm a Toronto Blue Jays fan, and we all know that they did not come into existence until 1977. So, as a baseball fan, had to have a team to follow before that. The team that I followed was the Cincinnati Reds. They were a good team. They were always on national television because they were a good team. Johnny Bench was a player that to me stood out above all of his peers as a catcher. And he was just an individual that I started following at quite a young age, and eventually followed him till the end of his career in the 80s.
They were on TV a lot in the 70s. NBC, Joe Garagiola. Okay, John, so let's start it. The career of Johnny Bench.
Well, he played 17 seasons in the major leagues, a lot of accomplishments, two-time World Series winner with that big red machine, the Reds of 1975 and 1976. 14-time National League All-Star, National League Rookie of the Year in 1968, two-time National League MVP, 1976 World Series MVP, 10 straight years where he was the winner of the Gold Glove as the best defensive catcher in the National League. 3 times he led the National League in RBI. Twice he led the National League in home runs. 6 times he caught 100 or more games for 13 consecutive seasons, and that to me is a very significant achievement. Elected to the Hall of Fame in 1989, his first year of eligibility, where he appeared on 96% of votes. And over his career, he had some outstanding numbers: 7,658 at bats, 2,048 hits, 389 home runs, 1,376 RBI, and a 267 batting average. All pretty impressive numbers.
Very impressive. I've always wondered, because I don't follow baseball like you do, about the catcher position. It's so different than others. And from what I understand, a lot of major league managers come from the catcher position. Just talk about the position itself.
Well, you're right in the fact that a majority of major league managers, both now and in the past, have come from the catching ranks. And it's usually somewhere between 40 and 50% of the major league managers at any one time are catchers. And I think it goes back a long ways. Back in the early 1900s, when baseball was first starting, a lot of the catchers were player managers, and it sort of evolved from there. But the catcher is very unique. Number one, he sees the whole game. So he gets, because he's in foul territory, he's the only player in foul territory in a baseball game. So he has a full view of the field. He's the only player on the field who does, in fact, have a full view of the field. So he has the same view that the manager does from the dugout. The catcher is involved in developing the pitching plans. So he talks with the pitching coach, he talks with the pitchers, he works on game plans, how to attack hitters. These are all things that managers do down the road. So I would say that it's probably basic training for being a manager. And, you look at some of the recent managers in baseball that have been catchers, and some of them are still managing. And I'm talking about guys like David Ross, Joe Girardi, Kevin Cash, Joe Torre, Jim Leyland, Mike Scioscia, Bruce Bochy. I mean, the list goes on, and it goes back even decades to guys like let me think now. Connie Mack, I think, was a catcher, and we all know what he did. He managed the Athletics for 50 years. Yogi Berra was a catcher. Al Lopez was a catcher. So it's not something that's new. It's something we've seen for pretty close to 100 years in baseball.
Okay, well, let's move on to the start of Bench's career.
Well, he was first drafted in 1965, and 1965 was a historic year because that was the first year of the amateur baseball draft. Prior to that, teams could basically sign any high school player and potentially a college player, although college players were not big items in those days. And it basically came down to who had the biggest checkbook or who the kid wanted to play for. And we all know that this is how the Yankees built their dynasty. But this all stopped in 1965 when the Major League Draft started. At that time, there were 20 teams in the major leagues, 10 in the National League, 10 in the American League. And the Reds had the 16th pick in each round. So they were pretty close to the end of each round. They were in the bottom quarter. And in the first round that year, they used their first round pick to select a guy by the name of Bernie Carbo, who was a useful outfielder. He played 12 seasons in the majors for 6 different teams, including the Reds. But when it came time to make their second pick, which was the 36th pick overall, they selected a 17-year-old high school catcher named Johnny Bench out of Binger High School in Binger, Oklahoma. I know about Binger. I did some research. The population is less than 1,000 people. So, he's pretty much a big man around town in Binger, Oklahoma.
I've been through Oklahoma several times, and actually Oklahoma City a few times, but I never been to Binger. So.
I suspect that you see Binger and see the back of Binger just as you're driving through, because the population, I believe, at the last census was less than 700 people. So we're talking small town America here. And interestingly, if you glance through the names of some of the players drafted ahead of Bench in 1965, you'll come across some serviceable major league players in addition to Bernie Carbo. You'll see names like Rick Monday, Joe Coleman, Ray Fosse, Jim Spencer, Gene Lamont, and Del Unser. Those guys all jump out as players who enjoyed some success in the major leagues. But other players that were selected ahead of him no longer ring any bells when you see their names. They're just names, and some of them never made the major leagues. A few of them didn't even sign with the major league team that drafted them. So Bench started his very quick journey through baseball's minor leagues. He progressed very quickly through their system. He amassed just over 1,100 minor league at-bats before he made his major league debut at the age of 19, late in 1967, when he played in 26 games. His first full season was 1968. He played 154 games. He hit 15 home runs, had 82 RBIs, batted .275, and was voted the National League Rookie of the Year. Soon after that, he became the standard by which catchers were measured, and in fact are still measured today. And while the Cubs' Randy Hundley had used the one-handed catching style to protect his throwing hand previously, it was actually Bench who perfected it. And today we see every major league catcher using that technique. He had a terrific arm, and after a few years in the majors, even the good base stealers wouldn't run on him because they knew his arm was very strong and very accurate, especially when his throws to second base were received by Joe Morgan. Bench was a key member of those mid-1970s Big Red Machine teams with guys like Tony Perez, Joe Morgan, Dave Concepcion, Pete Rose, George Foster, Cesar Geronimo, and Ken Griffey Sr. And along with Perez and Morgan, he's in the Baseball Hall of Fame. Now, we all know that Pete Rose, the career hit leader, is of course not eligible for the Hall of Fame, but I think we can all pretty well safely say that if he was eligible, he too would have undoubtedly have joined that group in the Hall of Fame. The Reds Hall of Fame manager, Sparky Anderson, knew exactly how good Johnny Bench was. He was known to say many complimentary things about Bench, but he also said that he was so good that he could have caught a game with a pair of pliers. Anderson also said that there were good catchers, there were great catchers, and then there were Johnny Bench. But perhaps the statement that summed up his opinion the very best was when one day he was asked about how another good major league catcher compared to Bench. Anderson's response was, and a very quick response, I might add, "I wouldn't embarrass any other catcher by comparing him to Johnny Bench."
Okay, Jim Poulter in Toronto. I'm Dave Rush in Niagara Falls. This is the Sports Report, the archived editions. So he said that about Bench, comparing him to other catchers, or actually not comparing him because Bench was so great. But there are a lot of, well, not a lot of catchers in the Hall of Fame, but quite a few. So let's try anyway, comparing him to some of the other catchers.
Well, I feel he was the best all-around catcher in baseball for just about the entire length of his career. And, remember that during that time, we also saw Carlton Fisk from 69 to 93, Thurman Munson from 69 until his tragic death in 79, and Ivan Pudge Rodriguez a little bit later from 91 to 2011. 3 great catchers, 2 of whom are in the Hall of Fame, but in my opinion, Bench was the best. In answer to the Hall of Fame, there are 19 catchers in the Baseball Hall of Fame. That's less than every other position except third base, where there are 17 players elected. In addition to Fisk and Rodriguez, names like Mickey Cochran, Bill Dickey, Yogi Berra, Roy Campanella, Gary Carter, Ted Simmons, Mike Piazza, and Josh Gibson all come to mind as great catchers that are in the Hall of Fame. Now, you talk about comparing them. During my lifetime watching baseball, Mike Piazza might have been a better hitter. Career numbers for both he and Bench are very, very similar, and I'm talking very, very similar. But his catching skills weren't in the same league as Johnny Bench. Rodriguez might have been better defensively. He won 13 Gold Gloves, but his offensive numbers were not as good as Bench's. And in addition to being such a great catcher, Bench had the ability to play other positions, thereby keeping his productive bat in the lineup when he needed a rest. During his best years, while catching pretty much every day, he'd get the occasional day off playing first base and all three outfield positions. After 1979, he was almost exclusively a third baseman and subsequently a first baseman in consideration of conserving his leg strength. So all in all, he had an excellent playing career.
All right, that's his career. And then he did a lot of things. He was on TV a lot right after his career, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was. He actually had a variety of, and I'm going to call them occupations because clearly they were paid gigs. But 82 to 85, he hosted a TV show called The Baseball Bunch, where major league players taught youngsters the basics of the game. In 1985, took a little bit of a different tack, did some acting in a Cincinnati-based production of the musical Damn Yankees. In 1986, along with Don Drysdale, he did TV commentary on the backup game for ABC's Sunday Afternoon Baseball. Subsequent to that, he went to CBS Radio, where he worked with some pretty good names: Brent Musburger, Jack Buck, Vince Scully, doing National League Championship Series and World Series games from 89 to 93. After he hit the age of 50 in 1997, he became a part-time golfer on the Senior Tour. In 1999, he was ranked the top catcher on the Sporting News list of 100 greatest players, voted the top catcher on the Rawlings all-time Gold Glove team. And I remember on in a lot of ways. Between 2000 and 2018, the best catcher in college baseball received the Johnny Bench Award. But ironically, he's always said that his greatest thrill occurred in September 2011 when the Reds unveiled a statue of him outside the Great American Ballpark in Cincinnati, and how appropriate that the statue shows him in the act of throwing out a base runner. Today, he lives in Florida with his two sons, aged 10 and 14, just being a dad. So to wrap it up, 20 teams passed on drafting Johnny Bench in the first round, including the Cincinnati Reds. And the 1965 amateur draft, and 15 of those teams passed on him a second time. That's kind of hard to believe. Is he the best catcher ever in baseball? Well, it depends on your era, but whoever you ask, I'm pretty sure Johnny Bench is going to be in that conversation.
All right, very good. John Poulter in Toronto. I'm Dave Rush in Niagara Falls. You've been listening to the Sports Report, the archived editions.